Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new Nancy Drew analysis video. Today's video is brought to you by the patrons over at Mystique Manor and by all the official fellow detective channel members. If you too would like to support the channel and gain access to exclusive features, check out patreon.com/wizardkitten to become a patron, or click join next to the subscribe button to become an official fellow detective. For our first video of 2024, I want to have a bit of fun. With the start of the new year often comes a lot of reflection and introspection about where we are in life and where we might still want to go. Many people set resolutions for the new year, goals that may help them attain whatever seems to be lacking in their lives. I, for one, used to have a pretty unhealthy relationship with resolutions. As a recovering perfectionist, I would use resolutions as a way to try and force myself to change into what I thought I was quote-unquote supposed to be. It's only in recent years that I've begun to shed a lot of my unhealthy, punitive, judgmental, and harsh thinking patterns in favor of a more relaxed, intuitive, graceful, peaceful, and realistic approach to life. As I've grown, I now see resolutions as a really healthy practice related to intuitive self-love and personal growth. I no longer view them as a way to change who I am into something better. Rather, I approach resolutions as a general approach to life that I'd like to pursue in the new year, as I work to become the happiest and most fulfilled version of myself. They're also more of a theme or a word or an idea rather than some sort of tangible goal. I might commit to trying out several practices as a way to reinforce my theme, but I'm not holding myself to anything specific. I'd prefer a gentle guide rather than a strict regimen. This is an important caveat for this video because I want to really enforce that you do not have to change who you are, nor do you have to follow goals that someone else has deemed important in order to be a good person. You don't even need to set a resolution at all. There is no right or wrong answer in this, and you are already great just the way you are. There is a very fine line between seeking personal growth for yourself and trying to be something that you are not. It's a difficult line to walk, too. My hope is that you'll find this video and the ideas within inspiring and hopeful, not prescriptive or demanding. Okay, now with that ridiculously long introduction aside, let's focus on the major players in the Nancy Drew universe. Nancy Drew, Bess Marvin, George Fayne, Frank Hardy, Joe Hardy, Ned Nickerson, and Deirdre Shannon. I'm going to choose a hypothetical word and theme for each of these characters based on what I think their resolution might be for the new year. Perhaps you'll resonate with one of these characters and their word for the year. And if you don't, I hope this is still a fun character exploration into some of our most beloved Nancy Drew staples. Let's start with everyone's favorite amateur detective, Nancy Drew. For 2024, Nancy's word of the year is rest. This is a great word for anyone who has a tough relationship with productivity, constantly feeling like you have to be doing something with your time or it isn't valuable. Nancy is one of the most prolific detectives out there. She is constantly solving cases, and she barely has a chance to breathe at the end of a case before she starts a new one. Even when she tries to go on vacation, Nancy finds herself solving another mystery and skillfully avoiding rest. Admittedly, an awful lot of mysteries do seem to fall into Nancy's lap, but she never leaves a stone unturned even when a mystery may not be hers to solve. Nancy's laser focus, constant drive, and Renaissance man-like adeptness at whatever she tackles make her who she is and contribute to her grand success as a detective. As with most things, though, our greatest strengths often end up being our greatest weaknesses, and Nancy leaves a lot of things behind in her constant pursuit of mystery and adventure, including time with her loved ones. She also struggles to truly rest and rejuvenate. So for 2024, Nancy could try taking a legitimate vacation. No work or mysteries involved. She could practice taking rest days and finding forms of rest that work for her active lifestyle. She could take up a hobby that has no purpose beyond fun. 2024 is a great year for Nancy to rest. Next up, the delightful Bess Marvin, whose word for 2024 is courage. This is a great word for anyone who, like Bess, struggles to see themselves as worthy and capable, especially in comparison to others. Throughout the Nancy Drew series, we see Bess as friendly, gregarious, funny, loving, and sensitive, all wonderful traits that make her uniquely special. Bess, however, often ends up comparing herself to others or doubting her own abilities and competencies. Especially surrounded by other members of the Clue crew, she talks about how she feels too fearful, too timid, and not smart enough. Nobody wins in the comparison game. So 2024 is the year that Bess could decide to stop playing by having the courage to be herself, celebrate her unique strengths, and unapologetically showing up as the one and only Bess Marvin. Maybe she isn't as fearless as Nancy or as smart as George, but that frankly doesn't matter. Bess doesn't give herself enough credit for the warmth, support, and friendship that seem to come so naturally to her. So for 2024, Bess can start to explore her strengths and reframe her thoughts to focus on where she is successful. When she catches herself comparing herself to others, she could try reframing techniques that help her to see how we all have different strengths, weaknesses, and neutral qualities. 2024 is a great year for Bess to courageously be herself. Next, we have George Fayne, whose word for 2024 is vulnerable. This is a great word for those who feel pressure to be competent, controlled, or strong. Throughout the series, George is constantly referred to as someone who is incredibly intelligent and capable. Both of these things are true, but the double-edged sword of regularly being told that you are intelligent and capable is that it is easy to feel pressured to always be that way, to never let your guard down lest you make a mistake or appear like you don't know what's going on. George strikes me as the kind of person who probably really struggles to take a compliment, like she would minimize it or deflect it or try to change the subject. She also strikes me as the kind of person who would get really down on herself if something were to go awry or if she couldn't figure out the answer to something complex. I don't know if she gives herself a ton of grace, and that's where vulnerability comes in. So for 2024, George could practice making mistakes and relinquishing control. She could practice taking compliments or develop an emotional self-care routine that helps her get in touch with some of the more tender emotions, like sadness, disappointment, or embarrassment. 2024 is a great year for George to be vulnerable. Next, Frank Hardy, whose word for 2024 is similar to George's but has its own flair: acceptance. Like George, I think that Frank puts a lot of pressure on himself to always get things right. For him, though, it seems more related to doing the right thing and taking care of others rather than straight-up competence or strength. By that, I mean that Frank is empathetic, introspective, thoughtful, intelligent, and conscientious, and he sees it as his responsibility to solve problems and care for those around him. He's constantly looking out for Nancy and worrying for her, constantly doing his best to be a role model for Joe, and overall just taking on a lot of moral responsibility as a private detective. He's doing great, but I get the sense that Frank doesn't really see how well he is doing, and is a lot more likely to focus on mistakes or what is going wrong than what is going right. That's why 2024 is a good year for Frank to focus on acceptance, because he can't prevent things from going wrong in his life or anyone else's. Change is the only constant, and accepting that life comes with highs and lows, and that the highs cannot happen without the lows, can be a difficult pill to swallow. So for 2024, Frank can practice accepting when things are less than ideal and living in the present moment. He can practice relinquishing control and embracing activities that invite fun, spontaneity, and unpredictability, like low-stakes games or fun hobby sports. 2024 is a great year for Frank to practice acceptance. Next is Joe Hardy, whose word for 2024 is purpose. Joe is a pretty beloved character. Fun, welcoming, goofy, lighthearted, and spontaneous. He's a great friend to have around, especially if you want to have a good time. And in a way, he and Frank are complementary opposites. Whereas Frank is a little too serious, Joe can sometimes be a little too scattered and potentially lacking in direction. His joie de vivre probably serves him really well in life, but may also hinder his ability to take care of some of the more boring aspects of life. I don't know that planning or organization are necessarily his forte, which is why 2024 could be a good year for Joe to focus on purpose. This could help him accomplish his goals and complete projects, especially since Joe seems like someone who starts a lot of things with great intentions but may have a hard time following through. So in 2024, Joe could work to find some organizational practices that might suit him, like a calendar, a planner, to-do lists, or breaking down complex tasks into smaller chunks. He could practice goal setting by setting small, attainable goals and seeing which ones he can complete. He could practice putting together a short, realistic routine to set him up for success, especially with more mundane tasks. 2024 is a great year for Joe to focus on purpose. Next is Nancy's long-term boyfriend, Ned Nickerson, whose word for the year is bold. Ned is a genuinely kind, loving, considerate, thoughtful, and helpful person. He is a truly good person, but he spends so much time focusing his energy outward towards other people that it's easy for his own self to get lost. Bold is a great word for anyone out there who, like Ned, tends towards people-pleasing, struggles to say no and hold consistent boundaries, and spends the majority of their time prioritizing the needs of others over their own. While being so kind and generous is a remarkable strength, Ned mustn't forget that his own needs matter just as much as anyone else's, though he rarely states them. Ned does this thing where he pretends to not be bothered by something until it's too late, until he's so bothered by it that he can no longer contain it. That's why 2024 is a great year for Ned to start redirecting some energy back towards himself and to boldly express his wants and needs. He could start with baby steps, like asking for small favors from friends or family and giving others the opportunity to help him as he helps others. When he starts to feel lonely or overlooked, Ned could express his need to be seen and be bold by allowing himself to be seen. He could express his opinions on something trivial and truly start standing up for what he wants out of life. 2024 is a great year for Ned to be bold. Finally, Deirdre Shannon, because it seems like her interactive is pushing pretty hard for her to be a part of the Clue crew. And I'll allow it, because Deirdre is a really interesting and complex character, easily the one struggling the most on this list. That's why Deirdre's word for 2024 is gentle. This applies both to herself and others. Deirdre is really going through a tough time in life and has had a lot of unmet needs for quite some time. The bitter resentment that she regularly expresses makes this pretty evident. Deirdre is clever and ambitious, but she's also plagued by so much insecurity that she tends to take most things as a slight against her. That's why 2024 is a great year for her to begin dismantling some of the harmful narratives that she's carrying around in her head. This takes a lot of work and can start by Deirdre starting to question some of her judgments and assumptions about her world. Our brains are really good at coming up with negative biases to protect us from danger and harm, but that can also mean that they go into overdrive. When we're hurting, it's pretty easy to see the world as a dark, lonely, isolating place, full of people who don't really care or who only want to use us. Not everyone in the world is kind, this is true. But there's also a lot of good intention out there that can be found when the voices in our heads are a little less loud. So in 2024, Deirdre can start naming her feelings and asking questions. When she's feeling angry or hurt, she can ask herself why and perhaps explore that through meditation, an introspective walk, or journaling. What is the root of all that hurt? What does she really need? What is lacking and what good things are maybe more present than she realizes? These are not easy questions to answer, which is why it is deeply important that Deirdre be gentle with herself and others in 2024. So there you have it, fellow detectives. My idea of what New Year's resolutions the main characters of the Nancy Drew universe would choose for 2024. I don't know about you, but this video really made me think about these characters in a new and deeper way. It's always impressive to me how much humanity can be imagined just from a few appearances in a video game. I'd love to hear which character's resolution you resonated with the most, or your own resolution, word, or theme for the new year if you have one. Do you agree with the resolutions that I chose for each character? Let a Wizard Kitten know in the comment section down below. As we move into a new year, I just want to say thank you to all of you wonderful fellow detectives for making this channel possible. Off camera, I'm constantly working on my feelings of anxiety and self-doubt. I desperately want a peaceful, tranquil life that brings me joy, but the realities of life are often so much more complicated than I would like. My word for 2024 is choice, as I work to take back some of my power, embrace myself and my needs, and follow my heart as I pursue that which makes me happy. This channel is a big part of my life that makes me genuinely happy and has already helped me along with that goal. So thank you. May you have a wonderful new year full of whatever brings you happiness. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button or tipping me for the video with a super thanks next to the download button right beneath the video. If you would like to come join a fantastic group of fellow detectives at Mystique Manor as a patron for the channel, gain access to exclusive content, and support the making of more content like this, please check out patreon.com/wizardkitten. I also have channel memberships with exclusive badges and emojis to use during streams and in the comment section. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming an official fellow detective, click join next to the subscribe button. Please feel free to follow the channel on Instagram or Discord, linked in the description box down below. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.